I brought some video. Unfortunately, we can't show that today, so we're going to just start out this way. I like to show some of my favorite clips normally with some kind of expert commentary attached to it. But we're not going to do that now because of the lack of the machine and the screen. Let's see, I was talking yesterday about some of the things I've been doing recently. Alligator 2, where I got killed by the alligator. That should come out shortly, I think within the next couple months. And I did a movie called Tipperary, played a drunk driver that killed two people, Chris Christopherson's wife and daughter, and he gets pissed about it, comes after me later, and I get kind of slashed by a cult of people that have had family members that died by drunk drivers. So it's kind of a nice way of saying no to drinking and driving anyway. Then we did, right now, just Friday in fact, I had to work all night on a movie with Dan Aykroyd, who's directing it and starring in it. He's playing two different characters in big makeups, and I play one of the characters when he's in the other suit. And I said a little bit about it yesterday. It's kind of a huge, fat baby type thing. And he also plays an old age makeup too. And that's a real strange suit to wear because it weighs about 70 pounds because all the fat, rolls of fat, they have weighted so it'll look more real than just the latex bouncing around. And I think we still have about another week to shoot on that. That should come out around Christmas. I'm not sure what it's going to be called, but right now it's called Balkanbania. But it is definitely a comedy. John Candy plays two characters in it. Chevy Chase is in it also, and Demi Moore, who Friday night I had to chase her with a car, her and Chevy Chase, trying to run them down while the whole set explodes behind me. So it's kind of an interesting shot. Did that, let's see, of course last year is when I did Chainsaw 3. I doubled Leatherface for all the action scenes. Yes, I did have to wear a fat pad for that. But it was fun because they used the actor just to do some of the stalking things, but I got to do all the action parts. So I kind of thought I should play the part myself, but maybe next time. That one didn't come out as well as it should have, I think. What else have I done? See, as far as Fridays, we're giving it a rest for a little while until the script can be written, I guess, or until they decide whether they're going to do another one, which I personally think they will, but we'll have to wait and see about that. Does anybody have any questions right now? Yeah?
Any more Jason movies coming out?
Any more Jason movies coming out now? Well, the last one was 8, but like I was saying, we'll see what happens with the writing of the script and see what they decide to do. Who else has a question here? Yes?
What was the hardest stunt you ever had to do?
The hardest stunt, yes, Jerry. Okay, let's see. One of the hardest ones was definitely the fire stunt in part 7 that I did in the basement, because when you do a fire stunt, first of all, there's a lot of prep that goes into it, and you have to have certain things done to the set. And the set that we were in was a basement set, but it was actually built outside, so it was all wood. They had to fireproof the whole set, and especially the ceiling, because when I was on fire, I don't know if you really saw it in the film that much, but I had the flames going about 10 feet above my head and hitting the ceiling and spreading out. That's how much fire was coming off of me on that one. And it's also hard because it was an enclosed area. Even though it was outside, it was still a set. And sometimes you can have problems with oxygen, breathing, because on that stunt, I was breathing just the outside air. And sometimes you do a stunt where you have a breathing apparatus, but for that one, I was just breathing and holding my breath when there was certain. You can move around, and when the fire is in front of you, obviously you don't breathe, but then it moves away as you move, and then you can take a breath. Because I was on fire for a little over 40 seconds on that one. And that's a long time if you watch your watch and imagine being fully engulfed. And then the other one was from American Ninja 2, flipping the truck into the exploding gas station. they had to set the bombs in a certain area so that I could land in the middle of it and not be blown up with the bombs. It was naphthalene bombs, which is like mothballs, but it's very explosive, and if you're not far enough away from it, it will do a hell of a lot of damage to you. So those are the two major ones. There's a lot of other things. I had to do a high fall on a movie that's similar to Waxwork, and I had to come out of a building backwards and fall 110 feet, and I was wearing a monster head, and it was strange because as I'm falling, the head is like turning, so I couldn't see where I was going at all, and it's hard enough to go backwards and from 11 stories, and it worked out fine, but it was just a strange feeling not seeing anything while I'm falling that far. Yes?
Two-part question.
Oh,
First of
no.
all, how did you get involved in stunt work, or if you want to call it stunt work? And the second part, do you consider yourself a stunt man or an actor?
Well, actually, I got into stunts. I am a stuntman mainly, but I've recently gotten into more acting parts, as long as there's action involved. I've been doing stunts for 13 years, and that's been my main business. I mean, a lot of people do stunts, but then have a sideline job. But that's mainly what I do, other than some acting parts here and there. And I got into it when I was in college, actually. I took a semester break and went to see some of the stunt people that were in LA to see how they got into it, and I wanted to see if I could do it. And I ended up slowly getting into it. It just, some people fall into it from other fields like motorcycle racing or martial arts, but I just decided to pursue it directly, and it actually took a long time before I got going, but it did work out eventually. But it's tough. It's a tough business to break into, just like acting is. Yeah.
What's the most serious injury you've ever received from any of your stunts?
Oh, well, let's see. I got burned doing a fire stunt. This was quite a few years ago. I was doing a stunt where only part of my body was on fire, which sometimes is more dangerous than a full burn because it's more unpredictable. And it caught certain areas that weren't supposed to be burning and went out of control a little bit. And I got burned pretty good on my arms and my chest, my neck, about 35%. Was in the hospital for 5.5 months, and then outpatient for 6 months after that. So that's the most serious, and hopefully that will always be the most serious that it ever happens. It's the only time I've really been badly hurt that I was doing any stunts.
Did that make you wary of doing like the fire stunt in part 7? Or?
Actually, it made me a little bit nervous about doing the first fire stunt after that, but for a couple of years I didn't do any, and then gradually I started doing it again because, for one thing, just to prove to myself that I could do it, and also because fire stunts pay a lot of money. It's easy to pay a lot of bills in one day's work that way. But, and you know, I've done probably close to 20 of them since then, and we have a lot more safety techniques now. Like the big thing is the protective gel that we put on the exposed areas. We didn't have that when I got burned, so it's a lot safer now. Still a very dangerous stunt, but it's a lot easier to do. Yeah.
Are there any stunts you refused
I've never refused to do a stunt yet, but that's not to say that I wouldn't. I just haven't come across one that I didn't think I could handle so far. I'm sure it'll happen eventually, but there's always a way. If you think it's a little bit too dangerous, if you have the experience, you can figure out a way to make it look just as good with maybe a little less danger. So I haven't had to turn anything down yet. So hopefully I won't have to. Yeah.
Were you disappointed with Friday the 13th Part 8? Because I know a lot of people saw it worse. So not really with your part, but just the movie itself.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I mean, there was, you know, a couple good ideas that could have been used, like going to New York could have been very well done, but I think there was a little bit too much information that they tried to stick in something new, and I don't know. So I think that it also lacked in that Harry Manfredini didn't do the music this time, And I think that had a lot to do with it too, because I mean he knows the series better than anybody really, and it could have been a lot better. It just, when I went to the opening of it, it didn't have the impact as like Part 7 did. I mean, people were, you know, standing up and cheering in Part 7 when I went, and because of some of the kills, like the sleeping bag and those, and this time it just didn't happen. So I was a little bit disappointed with the outcome. Hopefully, next one we do it will be better. Yeah.
What did you think of Part 7?
7 I liked. Maybe it's just because it's the first one I did, but I thought it had a lot of interesting things with the telekinetic character, and personally I had a lot of different stunts to do myself. I also coordinated the stunts on the movie, but the ones for Jason were a lot of fun, and a lot of them that we had written I changed around to make them better. Originally, when I went to the top of the stairs chasing the two heroes, they were supposed to make the lamp hit me in the chest, and then I turn and fall face first down the stairs. And I talked to Beekler, and we decided that the lamp should hit me in the face, and then to go backwards and fall through the stairs, which I think looked a lot better than just like a tumble down the stairs. It surprised everybody. I think you didn't expect me to go right through the stairs. And when we did that, of course, all the stairs were balsa, except the bottom few. And when I actually fell backwards through, my head broke through the very last balsa stair. So if it had been a few more inches, it would have been one of the real stairs. It wouldn't have been too good. But and the burn I changed a little bit too. I just made it bigger. Yeah.
Which makeup did you prefer? Your one from 7 or 8?
Oh God, there's no doubt. Makeup in 7 was much better. I mean, that was appliances and dentures and a lens and everything.
Why did they tone it down for 8?
I don't think they meant to. They used someone that hadn't done any horror makeup before. He had done old age makeup, so I think maybe that didn't turn out as well as it could have, because he wasn't used to sculpting and designing a horror makeup. And there was no extra things like lenses or teeth either. Yes?
As a stuntman, how much of the allegations that have come out in the Dar Robinson part have you actually seen? You know, studios that just don't care.
I haven't seen it that much where there's that much lack of caring on the part of the studio. Sometimes the directors tend to get a little bit careless just because they're under pressure to get things shot in time, and they may try and push to, you know, make something that's maybe not as safe as it could be. But that's the stunt coordinator's job, is to make sure that everything is done safely. But I haven't really run into that much pushing like that. So, and I think it's a lot less than it used to be because of the highly publicized incidents. They start to think twice about that part of it, which indirectly helps us. Yeah.
Is it hard swimming with your makeup on?
Oh yeah, actually, if you can imagine, the appliances, of course, are porous, so, and they're glued to your face. And when you go underwater, it absorbs the water. So when you come up out of the water, you expect to be able to breathe, but you can't, because there's still all this water. It's like having a wet towel on your face. And you have to wait for the water to drain out before you can breathe. And the hardest thing was in Part 7, for the beginning sequence to match the end of 6, where I was chained underwater to the rock, that whole thing. The way we did that was I had safety divers, stuntmen there, and they would take me out into the right area and pull me under the water while I was on a regulator with a hookah line so I could breathe. They would pull me under and lock my boot, my foot, into a cable that was attached to the bottom so that I would float upright, because I was pretty buoyant. And then they would take the chain, put it around my neck, and put it down to the rock while I was still breathing. Then when the underwater camera was ready to roll, I would take one last breath, hand the regulator to the safety diver. Then I'd have to put the hockey mask on, which was hard too because of the soaked prosthetics on there. Put the hockey mask on and then get into position, and they would roll the camera and do a long panning shot from the head down to the boot to the chain to the rock. Eventually, it took like a minute and 15 seconds for each take, and that I had to hold my breath. And we did it about 12 times. And I could hear them cut the camera, and then I just have to wait for the diver to come back with the regulator before I could breathe again. And if he didn't get back in time, or he's swimming and he dropped it or something, that's not good, because I wouldn't have been able to get out. It was a very strange feeling, starting to come to the end of holding my breath and not being able to see where the air was or anything, because I didn't have a scuba mask or anything to be able to see. It's very hard. Yeah, right back there.
Were there any scenes that were censored?
That were censored?
Yeah, that we couldn't see.
Oh, there's always the good makeup effects that are cut out. I mean, that happens in every horror film that's done nowadays, but especially in 7, we lost a lot of good stuff. I was talking about yesterday where I squeezed the guy's head, and you saw a trickle of blood come out of his eye, and then they cut away from it. His head just exploded when the prosthetic head just blew up. When I squeezed it, really all the shit flew out. It's very nice. I mean, I want to get a copy of it, but then the guy that was carrying the wood, we had it all rigged so that it looked like my arm was all the way through his body, and he was struggling. That was cut way down. The guy that I kind of golfed in the face with the axe when his girlfriend was skinny dipping, they completely cut that out. The guy, when he did it, I knocked his head backwards and a fountain of blood came up like 4 feet high. You don't see any of that. There was a couple others. The sleeping bag was toned down too. I smashed it against a tree about 7 times, and they only used 1. But it actually ended up being pretty good because it's kind of a shock value thing. That's another one, yep, the weed whacker. That also was actually my suggestion to use that tool. But no, that's the guy that I golfed in the face with. He was Gucci face. But the weed whacker was, we put the actual tool right into the dummy's chest, and the stuff flew across the room and splattered on the wall. Again, you didn't see any of it. I want to get the whole version myself. Yeah, back there.
Yeah, Kane, what was your favorite killing?
My favorite was the sleeping bag, I think, for the effect. That's the one that, when I went to the theater, to the Chinese theater in LA, in Hollywood, I went there kind of, low-key, nobody else. I went with a couple other actors. Nobody knew we were there, so we just wanted to see how the audience reacted. On the sleeping bag, they were standing up and high-fiving and screaming. I mean, literally, that's not an exaggeration. Yeah.
Would they ever put that uncensored version on video? Or?
I really don't think they will put it like the unrated version out, just because they haven't yet, so I doubt if it'll happen. But I don't even know if one exists. When they edit, it's just all in pieces. And I don't know if anyone ever put together, the whole thing as an unedited version. I'd like to have it myself, because there were some good makeup effects. I mean, part 8, there was one good one that they left in. I thought when I cut the Admiral's throat from behind, and it kind of just slashed like this, and you weren't sure what happened in slow motion. He leans back and his throat opened up. I thought that one looked pretty good, and they left that in. But that was like the only good effect that was in part 8, really. Yeah.
Where was this filmed?
Where are they filmed?
Yeah, like the Crystal Lake and stuff.
Well, actually, part 7 was done in Alabama, and part 8 was in Vancouver, Canada. I figured, I guess a lake and woods is woods, so it doesn't matter where you are as long as it looks similar. I don't think they'll go back to Canada and do one. I think it was a little too much to get everybody up there, and it was a little too expensive. Who else has a question? Yeah.
Why did they shoot in Vancouver instead of New York?
New York, I guess, is very, very expensive to shoot in. And to be able to do as much as we did in Vancouver, in New York, I think would have been way too much money. And I think they had some kind of deal with the Canadian people. Plus, supposedly, when you shoot in Canada, you get the exchange rate for your money kind of increases your budget without anything, just because of the exchange rate. So you get more production value sometimes that way. I personally would have liked to be in New York a lot more, because the only really scenes we did in New York were the ones that you could tell were in Times Square. And the radio gag, I liked that scene. That ended up pretty good when I smashed the radio and those kids trying to get tough. All I do is pick up the mask and look at them and they say, okay, let's go, we'll see it. But it worked out all right. I think everybody would have been more happy if more of it was done in New York also, since the subtitle is Jason Takes Manhattan. I mean, it kind of misled everybody with that whole thing. It should have been something like Jason's on a ship or whatever. Forever. Jerry, you had one.
What was the first stunt you ever did on what movie?
Actually, the first thing I ever did was I was trapped on a tower that was on fire, and I had to be rescued by going across a rope to another tower, and that was on a TV show called Emergency, back in 1976 or 77. And I'm still getting residual payments for that one, so residuals are what saves us sometimes. That was the first thing, and then I went into, did a show called Hunter, which is not the same TV show that has been on recently, but it was with James Franciscus. Those are the first two things I did, and then there was a long break before I did anything else. Trying to establish a name for myself. Takes a while. Yeah?
What was your first movie?
Let's see, first movie, I think it was In God We Trust. It was a comedy with Marty Feldman and Richard Pryor. And I didn't even see it, so I'm not surprised. Nobody else knows about it. It was supposed to be a good movie, but it turned out to be pretty shitty. With all those characters, it should have been good. You saw it? It wasn't very good, was it?
It was okay. I like Peter Boyle and Carol Kane.
Yeah, that's right, Peter Boyle, I forgot. I don't think it's ever even come out on video, though.
It has, yeah.
I've never seen it. Yeah. You guys know more about it than me. Who else has a question? I mean, right there.
How do you feel when you're like stopping the parade? I mean, because of it, do you feel like you get a little carried away sometimes?
Yes.
That's something else.
Oh, yes. I try to get carried away, yes. Now, sometimes you really get your mind set into it. You can feel pretty scary walking through the woods wearing that kind of stuff. And I've scared people indirectly. I mean, people that weren't involved with the movie. I've told this story a lot before, but while we're in Alabama, there was a part where the lake was a certain set, and then to go to the dressing rooms was quite a walk on this road, or you could make a shortcut through the woods on a trail. This is about 2:30 in the morning. I'm cutting through the trail just by myself, still wearing everything, because when I'm shooting, I usually don't take the mask off at all. And so I'm walking through the trail, and I see this guy coming the other way, who I don't recognize from being from the crew. So he stops, and I just stopped and did the stance. Just gave him a little look, and he said, "Are you with the movie?" Well, obviously he's never seen one of these, so I'm gonna mess him up a little bit. So I stand there and just stare at him, and then maybe cock the head a little bit. And he says, "Oh, you are with the movie, right?" I get all nervous. So of course I lunged for him. He took off, and I don't know whatever happened to him. I heard later that the sheriff was supposed to show up to see if we were shooting in the correct areas, and I hope that wasn't him, but it scared the hell out of him a little bit. Get little bonus things like that. When we were doing part 8, we were doing the scenes in Vancouver where I come breaking through the cafe doors and throw the cook against the mirror, that whole thing. And while I was outside waiting for them to rig the door, I was sitting at a bus bench where the bus stops, and I was just sitting there because I was pretty tired, and the bus pulled up, and I saw some people looking out of the window, and I heard one guy say, "Hey, look at that dummy of Jason sitting on the bench there." So I didn't move for a second. The bus sat there a minute, and they're talking and talking, so I jumped up and grabbed for his window, and he took off and sat on the other side of the bus for a while. But that's kind of a fun part, scaring people like that. I love it. Who else has a question? Anything? So I'm glad nobody here that one time I was speaking at a college, and some guy came in dressed as what he thought Jason should look like, which was hockey mask, of course, overalls, which is close, football helmet, which I've never seen before, and thongs. And maybe it's just me, but I wouldn't be scared of Jason if he was flapping after me in the woods wearing thongs. I don't care what weapon he had. And he says, when you kill people, do you really kill them? So, yeah, I know, he's a genius. And I said, no, it's all makeup effects, and you know, that's how we do this stuff. And he looked a little dejected and kind of walked out. Didn't care for that answer. He's hoping for something more juicy, I guess. Ed.
What was it out of Chainsaw 3?
Let's see, out of Chainsaw, well, Howard will talk about that. What did we lose? We lost a lot of the stuff in with the sawing of the head, right? Because that was actually me putting the prosthetic head into the real chainsaw. We lost the whole Sarah kill against the tree. They cut out everything. That was a nice one because you could see me, the camera was like her POV and I was just with the saw and the blood was spraying all over my leather face mask. So we lost quite a few things. I mean, everything that K&B did, all the really good stuff you never really got to see, so it's kind of a rip-off for them. Hey. I have no idea. I mean, I know it got an X rating a lot of times so that they were, I guess, thinking about that, but I'm not sure why they decided not to. I never heard. Yeah.
The subway scene in Part 8 was pretty good. I read that the girl slung her head out and he knocked her out of the way. That was in the script, right?
Actually, it was a guy, but I'm coming through the subway chasing them, and everybody is facing forward, and I'm coming from behind them. And so the two actors run by, and then this guy trying to get his face in the camera more, like goes like this out in the aisle to watch where they're running, and I'm coming from behind him. And obviously I'm not going to like avoid his head, because he's doing it on purpose, and Jason wouldn't like walk around somebody. So I just clubbed him in the head with my elbow as I walked by. He said, wow, that was a little too real, but he liked it because it kind of made him stand out more in the movie. And then there's another girl who actually was Wesley's stunt girl, so she did a real good job, but she's standing there, and I knocked the shit out of her, and knocked her right back down into the seat. There's a couple good things in the subway. I liked also when they pulled the emergency cord, and I hit the ground, they actually slammed the brakes on in the train, so that when I hit the ground, I slid like 15 feet along the carpet because of all the methicil slime they had all over me for every shot. I also did that on the ship once, but that wasn't planned. There was a shot where I have to go up to the radio cable or the antenna and pull the cables out so nobody can call for help. And so I couldn't reach up that high because it was a long ways up, and they wanted me to be right next to it, so they built kind of a walkway, step ladder out of boxes so I could slowly walk up, grab the cables, turn around, and walk back down. And of course, again, when you're in that character, you don't want to be looking down where you're walking, because, you know, he's not that type of person that would look where he's walking. And it was in a rainstorm that they created. So I'm walking back down the steps that are uneven, and I just like stepped with my heel on one step, my toe went to the next, went right down on my butt, slid across the deck again because of the slime, but obviously they didn't use that in the show. A little too funny, I think. Well, that's a question, yeah.
Do you encourage others to go into stunt work?
I would never discourage anybody from going into stunts. I would just make sure that someone knew that it takes a while to get working. I mean, because people aren't going to hire you unless you have some kind of reputation, because it's safety. You know, if a coordinator hires you and you get hurt or something, it really comes down on the coordinator for letting that happen, even though it might not be his fault. So coordinators are very picky about who they hire, and until you've proven yourself, you don't get many jobs. You might get little fight scenes or something, but you don't get anything real dangerous for a while. And then once you get to the point of doing a lot of dangerous things for a number of years, then you start thinking maybe it's time to go back to those easy fights. You know, because you push your luck one too many times. And, you know, Dar Robinson, he did so many amazing stunts, and then he died doing a motorcycle chase, which should have been very simple. You never know. Yeah. Well, what it was they were doing high-speed run-bys, camera, and it was actually after the shot was over and they were still going around the curve, and he just didn't get into it deep enough and popped me back up and he went off an embankment. And he hit some rocks and kind of bounced, and then the motorcycle hit him in midair also, and then he hit the rocks again, so he had a lot of internal injuries, which is what killed him. Okay, we've got time for just a couple more. Yeah.
What movies do you think have some of the best stunts? Like to you, like what are you impressed by?
Good stunt movies are like there was. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm told that there's a lot of good stuff in Die Hard 2, and it's supposed to be because a lot of my friends worked on that. I was on another show. Let's see, there was also, if you ever saw the Stuntman with I think it was Michael Kane? Peter O'Toole, yeah, that's right. And Steve Railsback, that had a lot of good stuff in it. There was a few stunts in that done by a guy named A.J. Pacunas, who also unfortunately died doing a high fall a few years ago. He fell off a building 323 feet, which is way higher than I ever want to go. And he actually went through the airbag. He was going so fast. But he did a lot of good stunts in the Stuntman. One more question. Who has it? Okay. Oh, favorite horror movie. I liked the first Halloween and the first Nightmare, actually. And for just the bizarre effect, I liked first Chainsaw and the first Hills Have Eyes, which is very strange. I did the second Hills Have Eyes. I doubled the Reaper in that. I don't know if you remember that, but the first versions of a lot of movies, even the first Friday was good just because of the impact of it. And I don't know about any recent ones. Of course, I liked Alien and Aliens. They were both pretty good. So those are pretty much my favorites. Anyway, we got Doug coming in shortly, so thanks for coming in and enjoy your day.